Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Secrets of the ERISA Vault podcast. My name is Noah Breazeale. I'm an attorney with Eric Buchanan Associates, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about what fiduciary duties employers and plan administrators owe to plan participants and beneficiaries, and in particular, their duty to disclose material information about employee benefits and in my practice, what information I commonly ask plan administrators or employers to provide when I'm helping someone with a claim. Before launching into the duty to disclose and what that looks like, I think it makes sense to talk a little bit about what duties employers and plan administrators have under ERISA to establish a plan, as well as what general duties they have towards plan participants and beneficiaries once that plan has been established. So first and foremost, when you are going to offer an employee welfare benefit plan under ERISA, in order for it to be reasonable, in order for it to be sufficient, it has to be established and maintained pursuant to a written instrument. It has to be in writing. And not only does the plan have to be in writing, but it has to contain some minimum information, including provisions for how the benefit plan is funded. Who's going to pay the benefit? Is it an insurance company? Is it the employer itself? Or is it some combination thereof? It also has to include information and language detailing how the plan is administered. How do you obtain coverage? How long does your coverage last? What benefits are available to you? What special rules or exclusions may apply? And in much the same way, it has to include procedures detailing how plan participants and beneficiaries are actually going to receive benefits under the policy. How does payment work? All of this has to be established in writing and written and made reasonably available to plan participants and beneficiaries. In addition to this duty to establish and maintain a written plan, ERISA also imposes on employers and plan administrators a general duty of loyalty. And this comes straight from the statute itself. And what it requires is that employers and plan administrators acting as ERISA fiduciaries have to discharge their duties with respect to a plan solely in the interest of participants and beneficiaries and for the exclusive purpose of providing benefits to participants and beneficiaries. So, just as a quick recap, under ERISA, if you're an employer or plan administrator and you're offering benefits pursuant to ERISA to your employees, you have to do so pursuant to a written document. You have to put it in writing, and you have to administer and carry out that plan in the best interests of the employees and the participants that it covers. Part and parcel of this, of these duties is, some might say it's a subset, some might see it as a separate duty, but the duty to inform, also known as the duty to disclose. This is often referred to as a core duty of a fiduciary and includes an obligation to provide accurate information to plan participants or beneficiaries and an affirmative obligation not to misrepresent the terms or administration of an employee benefit plan. Additionally, it can even include situations where the employer or the plan administrator must communicate material facts affecting the interests of beneficiaries, both in situations when the participant or beneficiary asks for the information and sometimes even when they don't ask. So just to give a classic example that I've seen, some cases that I've been involved in over the years where this duty of disclosure, this duty to inform has been breached, it's created an issue. There are times where, whether it's intentional or not, the employer or the plan administrator provides what happens to be incorrect information. Usually this has to do with the deadline or with whether coverage is going to be available to someone after, let's say, for example, after they leave the company or after they retire. And it can really put people in some tricky situations, particularly when we're talking about things like life insurance. You think that when you retire, you're going to be able to take your life insurance with you, and you take reasonable steps to talk with your employer beforehand, and they tell you, yes, you can take it with you, and there's no issues whatsoever. And it turns out that's incorrect, right? And so you've already retired, you've already pulled that trigger, and now I've helped plenty of people who've been in a situation like that where they're just kind of left high and dry um, because they were told the wrong information. And that not only is that violative of the duty of loyalty under ERISA, but it also violates the separate duty to disclose and provide not only material information, but accurate and correct material information. So now that we've established and gone over a little bit about the general fiduciary duties imposed on employers and plan administrators under ERISA, namely the duty to establish employee benefit plans in a written document and the duty to disclose and provide material information to plan participants and employees upon request, I wanted to take a turn and talk a little bit about um, what types of things are worth asking for, and the type of questions, the type of requests I make in my day-to-day practice, and in my examples and the requests I'm going to be talking about today, particularly will have to do with a long-term disability plan. Um, a lot of this is going to be the same if we're talking about a healthcare plan, we're talking about different employee benefits, but I just want to stress that this is not meant to be an exhaustive list, and that some of the things that are probably worth obtaining in the context of a long-term disability claim are not necessarily going to translate to other types of employee benefits. With that being said, let's launch into it. So I mentioned earlier that there is a duty to establish and maintain a written plan document. That's one of the first things that you should be asking for. Um, Sometimes employers, plan administrators will provide a summary of the plan documents. Often these documents are called summary plan descriptions. The summary is a short document, sometimes even just a couple of pages. It will highlight the major features of the plan, but it won't actually be the full plan itself. And one of the biggest ways, easiest ways that you can tell is on the face of the summary of the SPD, there will be a language or a paragraph specifically saying something along the lines of, this is not a full copy of the plan. And, in order to fully understand all of the procedures, all of the benefits available, you have to get a copy of the full plan documents. Going back to the first thing I'd be seeking is a full copy of the plan documents. It's okay to get a summary plan description. And often that ends up being helpful and consistent with the plan document itself. But most of the time, you want to have the full plan document because that's going to be the most accurate information relevant to your claim. And it's also going to include all of the provisions, all of the procedures that might apply. Whereas these summary plan descriptions often will only highlight kind of the most common aspects of the plan or the most common issues that can come up. A lot of this will be included in the plan itself, but oftentimes there are plans that will provide different levels of coverage. So in the context of a long-term disability claim, there might be different classes. Class 1 might have a benefit that is equal to 50% of their monthly earnings. There might be another class under the same plan that provides a 65% of monthly earnings benefit. And often, I think it's worth asking the plan administrator, asking the employer to identify what class of coverage applies to the person that I'm helping, whether there's a way to change the class of coverage, what the procedures are for that. Most of this is going to be included in the plan documents itself, but sometimes it's not very clear or it's incomplete. Asking for a written explanation of what benefits and what classes of coverage are available under the plan is something that I think is worth doing in a lot of cases, especially when you think that you have, bought up coverage or there's any concern that maybe you're not being classified the right way, to go ahead and put the employer, the plan administrator, on notice that you don't understand how that works, but you would like to, I think is a worthwhile thing to do. The other thing that I always think is worth asking for, um, particularly in the context of a disability claim, is, are there any collateral benefits? Collateral benefits is a term that I often use in my practice. But to put it more simply, are there other benefits that I or the person that I'm helping could obtain if I were found disabled under the employer's long-term disability plan. So these collateral benefits, kind of a classic example. A lot of life insurance policies, a lot of life insurance plans will provide what are called waiver of premium, sometimes called life waiver of premium benefits, where if an employee becomes disabled and is approved for benefits under the company's long-term disability plan, the life insurance plan will have its own provision that will allow them to continue and to keep their life insurance coverage because of their disability and their approval under the LTD plan. These collateral benefits aren't necessarily something that going back to this example of an LTD plan, that wouldn't necessarily be in the document itself. And so something that's, I think, always worth doing is asking, are there any other benefits that if I were found disabled, if I was approved for benefits under this disability plan, that I would be eligible for or that I could pursue? Part and parcel of asking about this is, asking for copies of the plan documents that apply to the life insurance policy. Are there any special procedures that I have to follow? Are there any specific forms that I have to use? All of these are questions that I commonly ask when I'm helping people appeal or apply for long-term disability benefits. And it's something that the employers, that the plan administrators have a duty to provide to you. Take advantage of it. These plan documents, unfortunately, some of them are archaic, some of them are written in a very confusing way, and it's not altogether clear how they work or what actually is available to you. And the good news is that under ERISA, your employer, your plan administrator, has a duty not only to act in your best interest, but to provide and disclose information to you about your benefits. As I mentioned earlier, these questions, not only are they particular for a long-term disability claim, but by no means are they exhaustive. It's just meant to give you an example of the type of questions that I think are often worth asking, and putting the employer and the plan administrator on notice that they have a duty to provide this information to you. I also think it is worth mentioning, when making these requests. And I think that about sums it up. Again, when we're talking about healthcare claims, other types of employee benefits, there's going to be other questions that aren't necessarily relevant to the disability context. But when in doubt, when there's confusion, when there's inconsistencies in the documents or the information that you've been given, it's worth putting your plan administrator, putting your employer on notice that you don't understand how your benefits work, and put the onus on them, to live up to their fiduciary duties and to provide this information to you. I hope that you found our session today helpful. And of course, if you have any questions, if you run into issues with any of your employee benefit claims, please give our office a call at 423-634-2506. Again, my name is Noah Breazeale. I'm an associate attorney with Eric Buchanan Associates, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you today.